What's happening, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. We have this beautiful E46 M3 that was built by Mr. Craig Lieberman. If you guys don't know who Craig Lieberman is, he actually built the Fast and the Furious Supra and the Fast and the Furious 2 R34 Skyline. Originally, this car was actually supposed to be in a movie as well, but it wasn't. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. Today, this car is actually owned by Rusty Johnson here in the Carolinas. Now, Rusty still takes this car to a ton of different car shows, and he also did some different things to it since Craig built it. So before we talk about what is done to this car, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history of this car. Sit back, relax, it's going to be a great video. Alright, you guys, so here it is, the 2002 E46 M3 built by Mr. Craig Lieberman. At this point in the video, I was going to go ahead and just tell you everything about the history of this car and why it is so unique and so special. But I decided, rather than trying to tell that story myself, why don't I reach out to the guy who actually built it, and he can tell you the history of this car firsthand.
Hello, Craig Lieberman here. Of all the cars with which I've been involved, this one was truly special to me for several reasons. First, it was a car that I swore I wasn't going to touch. Famous last words, right? But at that particular moment in time, I had just finished building an R34 GTR for Too Fast, Too Furious, and I had just sold my orange Supra, which of course was the car that Paul Walker drove in the first movie. So I had to make up my mind, and I figured that I had had my fun with those two cars, which were essentially built as show cars, but I still wanted a fun daily driver. I had a Lexus IS 300, which I got bored of and got rid of it. And the timing was actually pretty interesting. I purchased the car in 2001 as a 2002 model. I installed a set of OZ Superleggera wheels, and I was pretty happy with that. It was at this time that I was called back to work on Too Fast, Too Furious. I left my house with my fiance at the time and went to Florida for 4 months to work on that movie. I actually shipped my BMW to use while I was there in South Beach, Florida. When the movie wrapped, I went back home to Orange County, California, and I resumed my life. With the Supra now sold, I was looking forward to restoring my movie GTR. But fate stepped in when a potential buyer of the GTR made me an offer I just simply couldn't refuse. So that car went away. I still had the M3. And with both of my project cars now gone, my eyes turned toward my BMW. I almost started modifying it, and then I got interrupted when I purchased a 1,000 horsepower Supra. As fun as the Supra was, I still wanted that other show car. I contemplated that for a while, and I took the plunge in winter of 2004-2005. I ordered the body kit from Germany and started planning. Now, I wasn't originally going to do a wide body kit, but I had never done one to this extent, so this car was special to me in that regard. And of course, when I heard that another Fast and Furious sequel was in the works, I figured that I was going to have to do something pretty wild, so I took a chance. If this car was wild enough, it should have stood a really good chance of being cast in that movie. Once the kit arrived, I took the car to the same shop I've been using for 30 years, a place called Quigley's Auto Body. As is my style, I chose to paint the car a color that was never offered by the factory. For this car, I chose a Lamborghini Candy Blue, but instead of just using 2 coats of blue, they used 4 coats. A magazine editor somewhere along the line dubbed it Craig's Candy Blue, but it was really just, as I said, an adjustment to an existing PPG color. Several coats of hard clear were applied to ensure durability. A wide body kit conversion is no easy undertaking, as I quickly learned. How the inner fender liners are extended and mated to the body panels requires serious skill. Blending the side skirts seamlessly into the rocker panels is also a skill. The process took 5 weeks and cost about $10,000, not including the body kit, which was about $5,500. So, you know, it's just what we do, right? The wheels were custom made for the finished car. Bob Hale, formerly of HRE Wheels, did several measuring sessions and experimented with at least 3 different wheels. The wheels that you see on the car today were chosen only after extensive fitting and viewing sessions, and it took many tries to get it right. This was another first for me, having wheels specially built for a car, and it was just another reason that this car was so special among my builds. Now, of course, with such large wheels, the stock brakes were just simply too small. I reached out to a sponsor, StopTech, who stepped in and built a special set just for this car, and they wound up using 15-inch for the front and 14-inch for the rear, which really fills up the wheel. By early 2005, the car was really coming together, and I knew that this car was going to get a lot of attention for the motor press, so I took the next logical step. Audio video. And before you cringe, let me just remind people that back in the early 2000s, insane audio video systems were almost a prerequisite to getting into magazines, and since the car was being built as a sponsor showcase, I opted for a show-worthy system. Kenwood generously offered everything from their catalog. I designed the basic layout of the system myself after consulting my local installer, a place called Audio Toys. 4 weeks later, it was all done. After that, I threw in some Sparco seats, a custom-built roll cage, a few performance bits, and the car was more or less complete. For the finishing touches, I added some custom blue carbon fiber interior trim and a few other bits. When the first script of Fast and Furious 3 was written, it was a completely different movie. The first script was actually written for Vin Diesel. When Vin opted out, the script was changed and it became Tokyo Drift. Of course, there was no place for a wide-body M3 in such a movie, so it did not end up being cast in the first movie, but it did actually make an appearance in Cheaper by the Dozen or Cheaper by the Dozen 2, I can't remember. The car was stock at the time, it had the wheels on it, but it was in there. The car had its moment in the spotlight. It was featured in many magazines around the world and on many websites, including E46fanatics.com and Beamer forums and so forth. Online purists had mixed reviews. Some said it was sacrilege to modify such cars and turn it into a racemobile. Others said it was too over the top. I'm proud of the results, but the credit goes to those who did the actual work on the car. It was built as a show car, and it did what it was supposed to do, and that was bring recognition to the sponsors and brand awareness. 20 years later, it is to my great delight that the car lives on today, and I could not have asked for a better caretaker than Rusty Johnson. The car still exists, and it's running around doing shows in South Carolina, United States of America. So thanks, Rusty.
All right, so as Craig has told you guys, pretty interesting history on this car. And I do have to say, you know, seeing it on camera is one thing, but seeing it in person is an entirely different thing. This car, it is immaculate for a wide body E46 M3 that has been driven around, taken to many shows. And the fact that it is a 2002 that was built in 2004, this thing is very, very clean. So seeing the paint in person, I guess the best way to describe it is it has a bluish purple hue to it. It's unbelievable. Yeah, you guys can kind of see it on camera. It's got this purplish blue hue to it. It kind of reminds me of the 3M Blue Raspberry that I had on the E90 M3, but much, much prettier. It also has like a silver flake in it as well. Wheels are absolutely gorgeous. HRE, can't go wrong. Love the style of them. This car is so unique and so special for so many different reasons. Being that Craig built this, and being that Craig has the ties to Fast and the Furious, for someone like me that grew up on that franchise, that movie forever changed my life. And for so many of my friends, those cars, those actors, those movies were so influential. I really don't think the car scene would have ever gotten to the level that it did if those movies hadn't have happened. So it's really cool to be able to sit here today talking about a car that was supposed to be in one of those movies, but was built by the guy that built the cars for those movies. Honestly feels like full circle. So this car had many phases. When it was sold to Rusty, it didn't look like this. It was actually quite different, and it didn't have the supercharger kit on it. So we were at CES Motorsport. These guys are actually the ones who first worked on this car after Rusty bought it. So when they first got this car, it actually had red seats. It had a big screen that came up right here. Now there's the plaque there with the Paul Walker quote. It didn't have the supercharger. The blue carbon fiber was taken out and it was hydro dipped in like a normal carbon fiber. So I would say that it went from a all-out show car to a little more of like a tasteful styled car. What you have to remember is back when this car was originally built in 2004, it was very popular to kind of go all out with these cars. As Craig Lieberman said, you had to have audio and video, which is really something that a lot of people don't go too far into nowadays. Also, with this being a straight up show car, you couldn't just do exterior, you couldn't just do performance, you couldn't just do the audio video. It was always a full package deal. So you had to make sure that you kind of had all of those things to really put out this one killer package. A lot of times you see when people buy cars like this that are this unique and this special, they just kind of sit in a garage somewhere and they don't really see the light of day anymore. That wasn't the case with this car after Rusty bought it. He decided to go all in. He continued to build it, changed some things up, make it a little bit more clean, a little bit more to his style, and then continued to go to different car shows all over the country. So this car could continue to have life. It wouldn't just die somewhere under a tarp in a garage. So when Rusty bought this car, it had red seats in it and there was blue carbon fiber all over the place. Now Rusty kind of pulled some of that back and he got these custom sparkos made, which are so nice. These are beautiful. And then he did the silver and hydro dipped theme on the interior, which I think goes really, really well with this car. It's super clean. And then if you go to the back, he has a full-on audio video system in this car, which is just so cool and is so reminiscent of those times when we were going to car shows and you just had to have the full build. So while the TV screens and big audio isn't really something that you see a lot nowadays, it was a really big deal back then going to car shows. You had to have that to even be considered a winner. If we look under the hood, this thing is immaculate. It is so beautiful and it's so well done. So here is the Active AutoWorks supercharger that CES did here originally. And so now this car is actually getting some upgrades. They're actually doing some very, very important maintenance on the car and then also going full gas with the modifications. Now, I don't want to spoil too much about what's going to happen next to this car. This is actually going to be a two-part video series. In this video, I just kind of wanted to tell you guys about the origin and the history of the car, show you the car, and then the follow-up video is going to be what happens next with this car. So CES Motorsport is actually the shop that worked on this car after Rusty bought it, and now they get to do it again. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. This is a very, very special one. I want to give a huge shout out to the guys over at CES Motorsport. I want to give a huge shout out to Rusty for allowing me to film his car, and then also a special thank you to Craig Lieberman for hopping on here, making the commentary, and kind of telling us why this car was so special to him. I honestly did not expect to have Craig come on the channel and do that for us, so for him to take time and actually film that and talk about this car is truly special and unique, and I thank him so much. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.